Welcome to White Space, DCD's weekly look at news from the data centre industry. And first, we want to show you something. It's the latest issue of the magazine. Woo. We've enjoyed putting this one together. It does include servers made of plasticine and a good look at the people in the data centre. And a feature on the most beautiful data centres we've been able to find. If you have a look through that and you think you know of another data centre that should be on that list, let us know, because there will be an award for beautiful data centres in this year's DCD Awards. Okay, what has been going on outside in the rest of the world?
Well, there's people preparing for the end of the world. There's a company called Pickle, and they've gone to Svalbard, known for the big archive of seeds for when, again, the world ends. And they've taken film, basically just film, and printed a QR code style code on it with binary, and you can just have data on that. So it's and that lasts up to 1,000 years, they say. I mean, we can't really find out until after 1,000 years, but film does last a while.
So it's a doomsday data centre.
Doomsday data centre.
Right. I guess the access speed's not too good for this.
No, it's not actually connected to the internet. They say that's more for security, but it's also just because it's film.
So what kind of stuff do people put there? Or
So far, it's governments. You have Norwegian government, Brazilian government, Mexican government, like constitution and various cool documents of history, Brazilian abolition of slavery there to show history's important, humanity's important. This is what we did. And the cool thing is, because it's film, you can have on that pictures, just normal pictures that people see, that can tell people how to access the code and read it. So when a civilization rises from the ashes in the future and finds this, they don't have to be like, how do we even open this? It's designed with that in mind.
Yeah.
Comes with instructions.
Yeah, pretty.
So, outside in the rest of the world, the largest colo market in the world is now
Washington DC. It's overtaken New York, and it is now shortly followed by London and Tokyo. So it's not just Washington DC, it's obviously the surrounding areas, including the Ashburn major fibre node.
Right, where we've heard of moves to encourage more metro data centres, even than already exist. Yeah,
so a committee from the Loudon County, which is just kind of adjacent to Washington DC, are trying to get through some new regulations with regards to building data centres in town centres. So they're thinking of making it possible to build facilities if they tick a few boxes. So they have to match the kind of surrounding areas in terms of design. They have to only occupy about half of the space of a building, and they can't contain, like, no building can contain both residential units and data centres. So those are kind of proposed changes to current regulations that don't authorise those things. And the committee is also calling for the the supervisor board to allow data centres to take up more than half of the floor space. Granted, the other floor is dedicated to some kind of other commercial use.
Right.
So is that meant to make building data centres easier? Because it doesn't sound.
Well, it's kind of just, apparently the rules are not flexible enough at the moment. So there are places where the data centres could be built in town centres where they're not being built because of current regulations.
Yes, but speaking about giant data centres in America, RagingWire has opened one. RagingWire is an American company, but basically, in 2014, NTT, the big Japanese powerhouse, acquired 80%, and now, like earlier this year, they announced they're going to buy the remaining 20%. So this is Japanese-owned American company. They have data centers in California and Virginia, obviously.
Who doesn't?
Yes.
But yes, so they just entered the Texas market, and they've built something which is, at the moment, I think it's around 230,000 square feet. But the plan is eventually it's going to grow to 1 million. So this is going to be a big one.
Right.
And RagingWire does wholesale colocation. So once they open the doors, a bunch of people are going to start moving in, and we're going to cover this a lot more in the coming weeks and months.
So there'll be like whole suites taken up by cloud providers, etc.
Yes. There's nothing particularly interesting. There's nothing said about power supply. Whether they're doing renewables. I don't think RagingWire is a big fan of that. But the Japanese CEO of NTT, Tetsuya Shoji, was there, and I'm a fanboy. I mean, the man is magnificent. I mean, he's worked at NTT since 1977, and he's quite advanced years, but like he's young at heart.
Right, and for somebody with that length of track record to understand data centres and promote them, they also know how to put on an event. From what we hear, I think our US colleagues were there, and the photos, it just looks like they had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of events, maybe not as slick. I just got back from Shenzhen, where I was at Huawei's big global analyst summit, where I could hear about digital transformation and the road to digital transformation and the digital transformation of the cloudification of the cloud era, which was an actual sentence. But surprisingly, Huawei are very big on the cloud. Who would have thought? But it was a quite interesting look around the operation in China, where they're just everywhere, very much everywhere, and they've separated their cloud unit off into its own business unit now, which is kind of internally meant to be a signal that we're ready to go at this hard. But they're still just outside of China going for partnerships with telecoms companies and saying, Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, let's work together on making the cloud. We'll do the actual legwork, you bring the customers.
Yes. Am I right in thinking OpenStack's important to them?
OpenStack, they say what you like about Huawei, but when they decided to go into open source, they went into it aggressively, and they pumped a lot of money into that.
It's called Fusion Spear, isn't it?
Fusion Cloud.
Okay.
Okay, speaking of open source, Microsoft hates open source, doesn't it?
Yes, this happened 10 days ago, was announced 10 days ago, but it remains my favorite story of the past 10 days. And Microsoft has bought a startup called Deis.
Yes.
But it's interesting what Deis does, because Deis is 100% focused on Linux and Linux containers. Mm-hmm. Microsoft is embracing containers slowly, but the problem is, of course, that all of the containers are based on the Linux kernel and have nothing at all to do with Windows. Microsoft offers containers as a service on Azure.
Yes.
And has been slowly sort of like building bits of Linux, like they built the bash command line into Windows 10 not so long ago. So they've been ramping up their investment, and now they're buying talent as well. And one thing to mention about Deis, they published something called, I think, the Children's Guide to Kubernetes, which is very, very interesting, professionally illustrated. It's got like a bunch of little characters, including Captain Cube.
Yes.
So check that out. If you don't know what containers are and you need like a quick start guide, that's the place to look for.
Okay. We've had a small update on a long-running saga.
Yeah, it's like a soap opera. So Dumfries and Galloway in southwest Scotland was going to have a data centre and a horticultural scientific research centre and commercial greenhouses. The plan was set out in 2008, and the initial planning permission was obtained in 2010 and then extended in 2013, and all of those deadlines have been missed due to a variety of reasons, and they requested another one very recently and they just obtained it, so it may well happen one day.
But have they done anything?
Well, the issues that happened, so in 2009, so they were still planning on having 750 residential units, and I think there were a few issues with that, so they kind of dropped that when they got their planning permission. Then in 2011, they realised that the people that they were working with to figure out their cooling systems, which they wanted to be very green, had no idea how to do cooling for data centres. So they then went to the Carbon Trust, who didn't do data centres until they started working with them. So they just started doing design for data centres, and they started working with Lockerbie data centres. So you can imagine that also went very well. And then in 2011, the company that had the designs for the complex went into administration, so they were in quite a lot of debt. So that didn't happen again. So I can imagine that's why the 2013 extension happened. But there's very little information as to what has happened, but there's clearly not very much emerging from it.
It almost feels like if you're going to go for a major infrastructure project, you should talk to people that have experience.
And finally, Sebastian.
Have you heard the one about Mark Hurd and his latest word?
Mark Hurd, his latest word.
Mark Hurd's latest word, Oracle co-CEO. So Oracle's latest approach of, well, just their general approach to how do we make people trust us in the cloud era is to talk smack or throw shade or whatever antiquated reference you want to use. But he was asked by Fortune about the disparity between how much they're spending, about $1 billion on capex compared to Amazon, Google, and Microsoft together about 30 billion. And he said, no. Data centers, they're not all the same, our data centers. And, in reference, therefore, saying Amazon data centers, Microsoft data centers, because Amazon and Microsoft, they're not known for technology. No. So someone from Amazon, a distinguished engineer and SVP, James Hamilton, who beautiful hair, who he took to the interwebs on his own personal website, talking personally, but on a website I'm guessing is hosted on AWS, and quite definitively broke down why no, just no, why.
So wait, let me get this straight. Oracle does not make its own, miraculous servers that are based on completely different technologies.
No, I mean they also have chips probably by Intel, and the idea that Oracle could have significantly less data centers because those data centers are significantly better seems quite a stretch. You could have maybe a 10% more effective system, but the disparity in scale is something to note. And he also makes the point that you also just want multiple data centers for redundancy, for safety, for proximity and all those.
Geographic coverage and compliance with various privacy rules.
He doesn't bring that up, but And and then they also revealed that the average Amazon data center has a 32 megawatt capacity. What a shit.
Right. So the word of Mark Hurd was found to be absurd.
Yes, it was.
Good. Is that all?
I think so.
Good. That's all for this week. We'll see you in the next white space.